Hello, Patricia here, welcoming you to another Poetry Pcast. How are things with you? I'm terribly busy here, getting ready for a holiday and trying to get podcasts recorded and published for you. And of course, get the proof copy of our second volume of Split Peas over to Richard for him to check for my mistakes. I do my best, but I know Richard will find grammatical mistakes in my bit. Sorry, Richard. Hopefully, Split Peas, our unique split sequences journal, will be ready for you at the end of February or beginning of March, both as a PDF or a lovely little book that you can cherish. Make sure you're on the mailing list so you'll hear about it as soon as I have it ready. Speaking of which, the last journal of 2024, 6/24, is out. The one in which we wrote tanka and haiku. I'll put a link in the show notes. All purchases help to keep this show on the road, and of course, all ISA and Buson members, as of the 31st of December last year, will have received it in their mail as part of the package. That's another way to support the podcast. A membership, as well as buying us a coffee from time to time when you can. No pressure. Thank you to all our members and coffee donators, because I really appreciate it. Before I go on to what I want to talk to you about today, a quick reminder that there's a video prompt on the Poetry P YouTube channel. It's a little video I took in the summer of the good people of my village having fun in the sun. Do go along and write some haiku or senryu for us, and leave as many as you want in the comments section for Linda to read and choose her favourites. They'll be on the podcast and in the next journal. I'm afraid the poems have to be left in the comments section, otherwise they won't get read. And you know what? I always enjoy Linda's first email of the month when she tells me which poems she's chosen, and I get to send emails to the successful poets. What a great job to have. So sticking with submissions, today I want to visit some work we've done in the past to inspire you for the next submission call-out, the 1st to the 15th of February 2025, Scifiku. Now I know some of you are coming late to the party, so if you've missed that call-out, do go and check out the diary on the submissions drop-down menu and join in with whatever we're up to. Remember, sometimes I do spontaneous call-outs. And of course, we're creating a second anthology this year, and only poets on the mailing list will be invited. Sign up if you aren't already. But I digress. Scifiku. We did speculative poetry back in the 5th season. I recapped a presentation the late Debbie Kaloji did for us last year in episode 49 of the last series. Link, you know where. It's on YouTube and audio. And now I want to bring you some of the poetry and the analysis that was inspired by her first presentation. You can hear more in episode 12 of the 5th series. These poems I'm going to bring you today were all honourable mentions in Journal 222. So if you have it, you can check that one out too to inspire you. If you haven't, you can get it on the website. The first poem is by Robert Kingston and the commentary by Julie Bloss-Kelsey. The second by Valentina Rinaldi Adams with a commentary by Joshua Gage. And the third is by Kristen Blessing with a commentary by the late great Deborah P. Kaloji. Here you go.
I chose Robert Kingston's poem, and it reads, Sky Ladder, the devil's tongue licks the stars. Sky ladder, the devil's tongue licks the stars. Now, I chose this poem in part because it instantly made me very uncomfortable. The whole image of the devil nipping at my heels, licking at me. I could clearly imagine the devil clinging to this ghostly ladder in space, nipping at my heels as if I were a star. and it was truly terrifying. So that was my first reason for being intrigued by the poem. Although initially I read past it and I'm like, ew. And then I went back to it again and again. My first criteria for Scifiku is this. Does the poem happen away from Earth? Or if it's set on Earth, is the narrator a non-earthling, or does the poem describe something otherworldly? And Kingston's poem immediately threw me into outer space with the devil gunning for me. My second criteria for Scifiku is, does it work as a haiku? Does the writer tell the reader how to feel, or is there a gap in the poem to allow the reader to experience the poem? And Kingston's poem definitely didn't tell me how to feel about this devil looking at the stars, but I certainly felt very strongly about it. And I feel that's the mark of a fine haiku. Now, in addition for this poem, and this was a bonus, this poem also reads well as a non-science fiction haiku. Your sky ladder in this poem could be a lattice for growing plants, and we could be simply looking at a devil's tongue plant at night. And the dichotomy between this very innocent read and my initial response really grabbed me as a reader. Commonly, the devil's associated with fire. The repetitions of S's in this haiku, in sky, devils, licks, stars, really brought to mind these tongues of flame. And since the poem is set in space, the image led me to think of burning suns, creation and destruction of stars. And that led me to the cosmic questions. How did the universe form? Why are we here? Where do we go after we die? And I think these questions provide a great interpretation or way to experience the poem. I wanted to mention that when I read this poem to my husband, because I got very excited with doing this whole process, and I was very excited about this poem in particular, and he had commented that for him, the idea of a sky ladder brought to mind some of the science fiction ideas of building a launching pad to get spaceships into space. And he could visualize that pad waving in outer space and maybe catching on the light and looking like a giant, like a sky ladder. Mm-hmm. And I thought that was a neat interpretation. So Scifiku, in my opinion, and this is still under debate, but in my opinion, Scifiku can embrace science fiction, fantasy, and horror. And this little poem by Robert Kingston captures all three. It is truly otherworldly.
So the poem I chose was from Valentina Rinaldi Adams. Proxima B citizens report a UFO, Earthship 1. Proxima B citizens report a UFO, Earthship 1. What intrigues me about Rinaldi Adams' Scifiku is the hard science fiction of it. Many of the poems we could choose from were softer in their sci-fi or used the sci-fi as a metaphor, whereas Rinaldi Adams took a known scientific idea or concept and expanded it forward. Proxima B, also known as Proxima Centauri B, is the closest potentially habitable exoplanet to Earth. What Rinaldi Adams has provided is a first context scenario between Earth and the citizens of Proxima B in 9 words. It's a delightful moment, especially because it flips a lot of tropes. UFOs are usually aliens coming to Earth, not Earthlings going elsewhere. Furthermore, the word citizens in line 1 implies that these are humans already on Proxima B, but that's not necessarily the case. This is a very humbling haiku that puts Earth and Earthlings as the outsider and forces the reader to consider things from an alien perspective, which makes for a striking experience that resonates well.
Cheers, Joshua. I didn't actually know that Proxima Centauri B is the closest habitable exoplanet to Earth. So a learning moment for me. And you're right, it was a humbling moment too. I think Valentina definitely gave Debbie, we shall see, the what if scenario she wanted from us in our submissions this time.
The what if is definitely there. The idea, like, what if we could actually get to Proxima B, and what if there are already intelligent creatures living there that would identify us as other? And I think that's a really poignant and humbling moment for the readers.
Thanks, Joshua.
The one that stood out for me after going through them several times, at first seems very simple and maybe just science, but then I looked at it in a different way after I read it. But in this poem is by Kristen Blessing. Lunar eclipse, we cast our shadow on another world. Lunar eclipse, we cast our shadow on another world. There is something eerie and mysterious about a lunar eclipse when the Earth comes between the sun and the moon, casting its shadow across the lunar surface. At its totality, it turns red, hence the name Blood Moon. I was originally drawn to this poem because I've always loved to go out and look up at lunar eclipses. And at first it seems obvious, we of the Earth casting our shadow on the moon. But then in the last line, our shadow is cast on another world. And as I sat with that revelation for a while, I started thinking of future space colonies and how the arrival of humankind would forever change a colonized world. I pondered what our exploration of Mars has been like, with all sorts of rovers and landers starting to make their mark on the landscape. And I thought of the British colonization of the East Coast, the Spanish colonization of California, and the United States becoming a nation and expanding west, what that has meant to Native peoples. What the introduction of old world plants and animals has meant to native plants and animals of the New World. Yeah. What this overwhelming desire to seek out and explore strange new worlds has always meant to the places being explored. I also thought about what might happen when we travel to a planet around another star with other inhabitants and what sort of shadow humanity might cast there. The blood moon of a total eclipse, lunar eclipse, also subconsciously evokes bloodshed and lives lost during colonization efforts, whether through force or disease. At its best, speculative haiku can be read at different levels, is relevant to the reader, and could cause the reader to pause and think, imagine what if scenarios. This poem accomplishes all of this for me.
Debbie, this one and Josh's one were really interesting for me because I think all of us here today probably either have ancestors who were great explorers or have been explorers ourselves and potentially have bred the next generation of explorers. I know that's certainly the case with my family. And so it felt apt for me that Josh chose the poem that he chose and that you chose this one. And of course, we end today's podcast with it. Thanks, Debbie.
Thank you.
I do hope you found these poems and commentaries useful and inspiring for your submissions, and I look forward to reading them. Now, before I go, I thought I'd try something a little bit different. A few more Scifiku, but this time written by AI, ChatGPT. I asked it to write me some Scifiku, and this is what it came up with. A star fades to black, whispers of worlds lost in time, echoes in the void. A star fades to black, whispers of worlds lost in time, echoes in the void. Nanobots repair, memory flickers then fades. I'm not who I was. Nanobots repair, memory flickers then fades. I'm not who I was. AI dreams of flight. Solar winds through circuitry. Galaxies watch on. AI dreams of flight. Solar winds through circuitry. Galaxies watch on. I don't know about you, but I think we humanoids might just have the edge. Let's do better than AI. So don't forget to submit your Scifiku between the 1st and the 15th of February 2025. Poems in the email, please. No fewer than 4, no more than 10. Thanks very much. Oh, and spread the word. Tell all your haiku groups and friends that we're creating Scifiku. And for a bit of summer haiku, head over to the YouTube prompt and write Linda some poems, please. I'll see you next week when we're going to be contemplating. Till then, keep writing. And don't forget to head over to the website and check out the links I've put in the show notes. Ciao!